Hi guys, welcome to Bokio. In today's video, I want to talk about the things that I learned after reading this book called "What Are You Doing" by Paul Holbrook. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. This book was recommended to me and it's been amazing. It's not the first book I read regarding this topic about being efficient, more productive with your time. I think one of my first YouTube videos was reviewing this book called 150 Hours, which again, it covers very similar topics, but this one it really goes into detail with like how to use your calendar to your advantage. I think that this is what makes it so unique. Um, so for those of you that don't know, I'm currently working full time for a startup, and then I'm building my business on the side. So I want to be the most productive and efficient, making sure that I'm still, doing my responsibilities at the startup, but also that I am working towards each goal that I've set for my business. So, one of the things that really caught my attention with this book is that Paul recommends writing down your top goals. So I have a mixture of like personal goals and business goals that I wrote down, and it shouldn't be more than five, especially when you're starting, so you don't overwhelm yourself. Then the next step is to really, this is something that I did. I broke them down into very small action items um, that I can then add every week. And each goal has a specific timeline. So I have goals that I need to do within 30 days, 60, 90, in a year. And by adding them to having an action item every week on my calendar, I'm gonna make sure it's making sure that I accomplish those goals within the time that I assigned it. It just makes it like so much doable than just saying like, I'm gonna get three more clients. Okay, but like that looks so hard unless you break it down. And one of the things, if you don't know how to break it down, you can just use Chat GPT or Claude to help you distill those goals into smaller action items. But then after that, once you have done that, you and you've added an action item into your calendar, you also need to review all of the activities within your calendar. Um, and then you need to assign them a color. So if you've used any digital calendar, you know that there's an option to categorize each event. And I've done this for years since I started working. Um, and like before, depending if it was like a client meeting, I used to use the color red. If it wasn't an internal meeting, it used to be the color purple. I had a personal thing to do, it was the color yellow. And that way I could see within a week at a high level, on a weekly basis, what was my schedule composed of. But Paul, what he says is that you need to use the colors, but in a different way. So anything that you are doing, like if you're carrying out a task or you're producing something, it should be the color red. So an example of that is like creating a document, sending an email, submitting an expense claim, or doing necessary travel. That's red. If you're monitoring, that's the color amber. So if you're checking to see that things are as expected, kind of more wearing that manager hat, that should be the color amber. If you're doing something that you're not sure how it adds value to your goals, um, or you're not adding any value at all, that should be great because you are floating. And guys, when I did this exercise and my calendar, it was horrible to see all of the amount of time that was all the events that were categorized as gray. And I was like, I need to get rid of this ASAP because this is getting me further away from reaching my goals. And then any activities that where you are directing, like you're giving instructions to your team members or assigning tasks, that again should be amber. So there's two things that should be amber when you're monitoring or when you're directing. Then any activity where you're thinking about like vision, strategy, how to grow your business, how to, overcome an obstacle, that should be green. um so like if you're being coach or you're being mentor, if you are brainstorming with colleagues, that should be green. If you're communicating, if you're meeting new people, sharing ideas, inside or outside the organization, that should be green. If And the last one that should also be green is improving. If you're learning, teaching, or enhancing your business, your organization, sorry, it should also be green. And lastly, um, the last category is living. So anything that you're doing to live or just have a happy life should be blue. um so this could be like eating, doing exercise, spending time with quality time with family, that should be living, that should be blue. And then this is kind of something that I did. So he asked for you to decide your working hours. And then within working hours, you should add any like, so if you're like more productive in the morning, that's where you have like your main energy, then, add those like big projects, those important meetings to the top of the hour. That's kind of how I work. So that's kind of how I arrange my day. And then I set my working time as not busy in Google Calendar. I just put like working hours and then made it as show as not busy. And then it will give you an outline of the time where the blocks that are your working time, and then you can be sure to add like something for like activities that are related to your business within those like main hours. Hopefully that made sense. Oh, if not, I'll show you an example in a little bit. Um, and then lastly is that this is going back to the targets. Um, because at the end of the day, especially if you are the owner, you want to spend your time doing the most green activities, um, like the highest amount as possible, because that's how you're going to be able to take your business to the next level. So what he says is that 80% should be spent on green activities and 20% on amber activities. That's if you are a business owner. Um, and the way that you can meet that is that for every goal or event that you have, you can think, okay, like what are activities that only I can do? That's a number one. And number two is what are activities that I don't have to do, but I don't have anyone else do it. So therefore, that's why I'm doing it. That's a number two. And lastly, number three is activities that can be delegated. So for me at the moment, a lot of activities are within the number one and two because I'm the only person in my business. But once I get uh, other people, then I can, do more one activities and get rid of those two activities. What am I missing? Yes. So then, lastly, every week you should have a set time, maybe in an hour, on your Friday morning to review what did you accomplish. Make sure that your calendar reflects what you actually did, because you're gonna have interruptions. That's just life. So you want it to be reflective of what color, was the dominating one. Hopefully it was green. And then plan for the next week, making sure that you have an action item for every goal, your top goals, so they get accomplished. Um, and color code everything as necessary. If you have empty space, fill it up with green activities. This could be as simple as like if you have a 1 hour gap, adding like green, like reading a book, hearing a podcast, right? Because it's enriching you and it will enrich your organization in the end. So I totally recommend for you to read this book. I honestly didn't cover other like great things that are also important. And this one takes you literally step by step of everything you need to do. So I would encourage you to take the time to read it. It honestly takes you like 2 hours to read it. If you, I, what I did is that I paused every time it told me to do something. And so if it's that, it could take you like a week, but it's a big investment that would change your life. So I would recommend you to do it. And then lastly, let me show you just at a high glance how it looks on my calendar. Right here. So let me share my screen and that way you can see it. Let's see if there's a way. And let me pause. Okay, I couldn't do it right now, so I will owe you that. Maybe like a screenshot I can add in the details so that way you get an idea of what I'm talking about. But wish you good luck and have a great rest of your week. Bye bye.